up, everyone? You know who I am. I'm the comic outlaw. Yeah, so how's it going out there? And we're going to be doing a review of a world before the WWE's PG era. Back when it was the WWF. And there was WCW. And there was a great war of Monday night, where two sides were fighting, but there was a third, a rebel group, a hardcore group, a group in Philadelphia that went by 3 letters, chanted by the bloodthirsty crowd: ECW, ECW, ECW. And we will be reviewing today the rise and fall of ECW. Now, I actually got to see this on and off because ECW was one of those channels that was real spotty. You would catch it here on the late night there, or late night there, and every time I caught it, I was like, what is this wonderful invention? I was hooked. It was a mix of luchador and hardcore wrestling. It had a bunch of different flavors from it. It had veterans in it. It even had Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, back when he was Steve Austin, when he was banished from the WCW, this was the between place that he went to before he became, with Ted DiBiase, became the Ringmaster, and then became Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that's just one of the many stories. ECW was like a holding spot for a lot of different wrestlers. Like Cactus Jack was there before he became Mankind. Also, they had wrestlers like Terry Funk, who was more than middle-aged and insane. They were calling him that back in the 90s. So now he's just insane. I mean, there was wrestlers like Taz. There were Rob Van Dam, Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho. All this talent got their break from ECW. They got noticed. It was like a first platform for a lot of these people, like people like Too Cold Scorpio. Yeah, he went over to WWE and became Flash Funk, and then became a member of the Job Squad, and just basically got jobbed out. There was groups like the Blue World Order, the Blue Guy. Yeah, they're basically a spoof of the New World Order, and it was funny as fuck. The Dudley Boys got their start there. And this was just a blood and guts, saw on the floor, good old-fashioned wrestling program. They didn't have a lot of bells and whistles. What they had was men and women willing to sacrifice for the audience, willing to do whatever it took. And just like, there was a recent death in the ECW world, and that was New Jack. And I'd just like to take the time right now and say, R.I.P. motherfucker. Thank you for the memories. From the bottom of my black heart. Thank you. Your contributions are not forgotten, brother. Not forgotten in the slightest. And all the members who have fallen from the ECW group, there's been quite a few. These men put their bodies, their spirits, everything on the line to entertain us. And sometimes we don't appreciate that. You're like, oh, it's fake, it's fake. They used to bring a weapon to the ring day, where the fans would bring their own weapons that these guys would use on each other. I mean, like, there's ass kickers like the Sandman, Raven. I mean, there was just so many different people. Public Enemy, the Pet Bulls. And this was ran by the mad genius himself, Paul Heyman. Yes, the manager, well, the former manager of Brock Lesnar, and the, I guess, current manager, depending on when you see this video, of Roman Reigns, because you know how shit is in wrestling. It could change in a New York minute. Ooh, 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 ooh. Yup. But this one is just great. The first video, great piece of history. They interview a lot of different people like Tommy Dreamer. They interview Raven. They interview a lot of the different guys, and it's cool. They talk. They give every wrestler like their due. Sabu gets his own video. McFoley, Funk. A lot of these guys get their own little videos, which is cool. Rob Van Dam, and I also like how Shane Douglas. I never really liked him in WWE. How he threw down the old belt, declared the ECW belt. Everything said outlaw from the get-go, from when Heyman took over. And it ran like an outlaw establishment. And of course, there are allegations and that have been proven that Paul would sometimes screw people over when it came to money. That's neither here or there. Other people say they got paid, but this company was literally on the raggedy edge. It was one of those outlaw companies. And they weren't doing it for the money, because God knows there wasn't a lot of it. They were doing it for the love. And I got to point out, and I've covered this in my Dudley Boys video, that I loved how the Dudleys were just complete fucking pricks. They were the typical bad guy, like 70s bad guy outlaws. You know, everybody fucking hated them. And I think that was one of their best runs, you know. And of course, there was more Dudley Boys than those two. I have a whole DVD on it, so go and check that out. But this thing was so awesome. There was actually a great run where Cactus Jack actually gives up being hardcore and wears a tuxedo and has a teddy bear and won't like fight people. The man was a genius. He did a lot of his good interviews. A lot of good work was done in this. This sometimes doesn't, ECW sometimes I feel doesn't get the credit that it deserves. Especially when WWE kind of fucked it up and restarted it. It just kind of took the fire out of it. It wasn't ECW anymore. I mean, they tried, but it didn't work in the PG era. But like I said, this has so many wonderful appearances, so many different things happened in it. Like, there was a match between Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow. Oh my God. Those guys kicked the shit out of each other. It was a badass match. I mean, there's been so many good things about this. And a lot of these characters actually carried on in the Attitude Era, like Stevie Richards. He became a member of Right to Censor, for example. So, like Taz. I mean, we're all familiar with Taz, the wrestler, the announcer, the TNA announcer, you know. Like, a lot of these guys were legends. I mean, there's no need to mention what happened to Steve Austin. And if you don't know what happened to Steve Austin, you're not a fucking wrestling fan. God damn it. I mean, like, and this was all the brainchild of Paul Heyman. And, of course, he had Tommy Dreamer and, you know, the Dudley Boys, a couple other people helping him run the organization. And this is just a wonderful tale. Like, you would not believe some of the stuff that happens. And this was the true renegade organization. All right? WCW says they did everything different from wrestling. They did. They made it more reality-based. This was reality. This was grit and grind. This was bone and flesh and blood being spilled every night for the entertainment of the fans. And then always saying, ECW, ECW. Their undying and unwavering support to these men who sacrificed for you. So sacrifice a little something. Sacrifice some time. And watch this. You're a wrestling fan. You'll understand exactly what I'm saying. What these men give. And these men gave a lot. And I feel like these men don't get the credit they deserve. There's not a whole lot of them that are in the Hall of Fame. I think I'm going to make a list of the ECW people that I think should be in the Hall of Fame. Dreamer, Raven, just off the top of my head. But yeah. I highly recommend. This is a great story. It's very even-handed. You get the wrestler's point of view. Like I said, there's a bio on each one, like each of the highlight of the like certain wrestlers, the big stars. It's really worth watching. And if you just love the nostalgia, a blast from the past, and you want to see stars like Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio Jr., Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, like all these luchadors actually passed through their psychosis all before WCW came and swooped in and stole all their talent. Well, another man's stealing is another man's buying. You know, they wasn't actually like they were getting paid. It it's kind of hard to call someone a thief or a raider. Vince McMahon did the same thing in the 80s. You know what I mean? It's just those who win write history, and WWE's history has been slightly skewed. But yes, I recommend watching this. This is great to watch. 2-disc set. First one has a lot of explanations, the story, and then it has a lot of great matches. I would just let it run. Like I said, it has that Taz Bam Bam Bigelow match. It has the Pet Bulls versus Raven, Stevie Richards. Ooh. All right, there's Mikey Whipwreck and Mick Foley are one of my favorite tag team because Mikey Whipwreck was kind of a coward and Foley was like this hardcore god. At this point, he didn't do the soft stuff. But there's so many good characters and so many good things. I could just spend hours like just dropping bios on each character. A lot of the different fights. A lot of the controversies that this had. This organization actually made Kurt Angle walk out on an episode. Yeah. It was that controversial, man. But as Eric Bischoff, Paul Heyman's enemy, once said that controversy makes cash. So. But yeah, ECW. Check it out. The true realm of the hardcore. Why don't you watch it and find out what it means to shed blood for something you really love? And what are you willing to sacrifice for just one more applause, one more moment in the spotlight? What would you give? And as always on the Comic Outlaw. And I'll catch you on the flip side.